Hi folks, you're with Tacitus today at your Pushback channel, and thank you for joining this live stream. Now in this chat, I'd like to talk about the incredible amount of money, white taxpayer money, that's being made available to fund anti-white society activities. So Western white societies are in this unique position where our own money, our own tax dollars are being taken from us and then used to fund all sorts of anti-white society activities, globalist activities. What got me onto this was a story that I recently saw about an illegal immigrant that came to a Western society and falsely claimed that he was a refugee. And it was also proven that he deliberately destroyed his documents and so on. So, and then while he was still an illegal alien, also managed to bring out numerous other family members illegally, paying people smugglers to do it, and they similarly destroyed their documents and the like. So he's now in a Western country, got his wife and some other relatives, I think some children and some other relatives. So they're all here, and they're all up for deportation. Now, it went through a fairly lengthy legal process, and it was declared that these very, very high-priced lawyers were working pro bono because it was such a huge human rights issue. Why this illegal alien's human rights were more important than anyone else's is beyond me, but really they were precedent hunting here. The globalists were precedent hunting and wanting to create a legal precedent so that they could then bring in hundreds of thousands or millions of other illegals under using the same legal pretext in the future. So then it would be quite a cheap court hearing. They just front the court in the future, say, look at this precedent. The judge goes, oh, okay, rubber stamps it, and bingo, then another illegal can stay, even though they've arrived on falsified papers or under false premises. So anyway, if we look at these very high-priced lawyers, oh, goodness knows why, and they don't ever do pro bono work, but suddenly they find that they've got some huge conscience about some illiterate illegal alien peasant from some third world shithole, and they're going to rush to this guy's defense. That doesn't make any sense on the face of it. So if you look at the amount of hours, if you look at the amount of court hearings and the amount of hours that were involved in multiple court hearings and appeals and all sorts of directions hearings and so on, and technical arguments over what evidence can be included or not. It was a lot. So I figure, given the amount of lawyers involved and given the rates published on the website of these lawyers, and you look at the amount of hours, the appearances, you'd be looking at somewhere in the region, including filing fees, of about $600,000. So here's an illiterate third world peasant, illegally arrived, has told endless untruths and has fabricated all sorts of things, but he's somehow attracting $600,000 worth of legal work. I couldn't get that, and I'm sure you couldn't either, but somehow this guy is. But why? I mean, so it just doesn't make any sense. You look at it now. There's a few things happen here. One is that sometimes legal aid will decide to cover it. Now, legal aid is meant to be to help people with legal advice or even representation who are poor but have a genuine grievance. They've been genuinely wronged and they need legal advice and legal help. Sometimes it's just to file documents, other times to represent them in court. And I think, in my view at least, legal aid is a much needed service for people, but it's for the citizens of the country, not for illegal aliens from a third world country. It's for the citizens of the country and who are in actual need. Not an ideological need of let's stick it up the straight white male or let's teach whitey a lesson. No, nothing ideological. It has to be a case that has legal merit of a genuine grievance. But increasing legal aid is just used for ideological purposes. And I'll come back to that in a minute. But just continuing with the $600,000. Now, legal aid paid the first part of this illegal alien's legal fees. Why, I've no idea. He's not even a citizen, for goodness sakes. But nonetheless, they did pay. But once it became clear it was going to be a drawn-out case, then they decided no, they wouldn't get involved. But these high-priced lawyers suddenly came rushing to the rescue. Now, what actually happened, as far as I can tell, is that really suddenly an NGO or a number of NGOs came in and they paid. These guys weren't working pro bono. They were getting their very high rates of their high hourly rates. And again, these are top drawer lawyers and getting paid by NGOs. So these NGOs come along and then they pay these lawyers. Whether they pay them full total or not, that I can't tell, but certainly paying these guys enough to drop whatever they're doing and rush to this illiterate peasant from the third world to rush to. So clearly they're being paid, either that or they're ideological fanatics, and I don't believe that. Maybe they've got sympathies, but they're not ideological fanatics. They're hard-nosed, money-making dudes living in their waterfront properties with their yachts and their $200,000 motor cars, that sort of thing. So, and if you're going to have that sort of wealth, you've got to make the money to support that lifestyle. So what's happened is the NGOs have come in and they're paying these lawyers to do this work because, again, they're chasing legal precedents that they can use in the future. So now the thing is with the NGOs, though, is they don't pay any tax, and so they're able to operate tax-free. They're protected as a tax-free charity. Effectively, they're treated as a charity in taxation terms, so they don't pay any tax. Now, if you make a donation to these charities, that becomes a tax deduction. So if you've got, say you owe $1 million in tax and you give a nice, decent pay donation to the charities, you can wipe out most, if not all, of your tax. So people are able to claim a tax deduction going to a charity, which is not a charity. They're just activists, and they're globalist controlled activists. They then employ lawyers to engage in yet more activism. So the lawyers are getting paid. The charity, which is an NGO, it's not really a charity, is able to operate without paying tax and then give tax exemption to receive tax exemption donations from other parties. So the money does a round robin, and so in the end, it's the Western taxpayer is actually paying to pay top drawer lawyers to represent an illegal immigrant, illiterate peasant from a third world country. So why you'd get that? So it's crazy, it's madness. But those are the sort of things that are happening. But we've also got to sort of realise that this illegal alien is being encouraged to stay. There are activists around saying, no, stay, we'll pay all your legal fees, we'll pay all your costs. We'll pay for your rent, we'll do everything. So this person is getting money thrown at them. They're just a pawn in the legal precedent hunting game. That's all they are. Same way as that Christian baker in I think it was Colorado is just a pawn in the game. That's all. But so this illegal immigrant stays in the West, gets all their expenses paid, all their legal expenses paid. And the reality is that they would have left much earlier or been deported or whatever, but they're only staying the course because they're being encouraged to, and because all the real practical world issues about putting food on the table, all these sort of things, is all being taken care of by activists. They don't have to face any realities that the illegal alien or any of the other people in this game, none of them have to face real world realities. So the illegal alien stays, and after appeal after appeal, a court hearing after court hearing, eventually they find that they get a proper set of activist judges to hear the case, and suddenly the guy is given status, citizen resident status in a Western country. And so all that money was spent just to get that legal precedent. But it's the same in a lot of cases now, where instead of there being legal merit in a case, in terms of a genuine grievance, everything is looked at in terms of how can we use this as a precedent later, and it's being seen in ideological terms in it could be gender conflict, so that if a woman wants to leave her husband, for example, even though she may not actually qualify for legal aid or anything, there'll be activists that will encourage her to say, no, you take him to court, we'll make sure we get everything, and we'll make him pay, and this sort of thing, and we'll pay your legal fees, won't cost you a cent, no downside for you. And so she goes. Now, there's another case a while ago where a girl had just done a roommate sort of share accommodation thing in the guy's place, and she'd lost a job. She couldn't pay the rent, so he said, you'll have to leave. I need someone to pay the rent, and she could have moved back in with the folks if she didn't want to. So she goes into during the night. She goes into bed with him, and then initiates intimate relations, and so he rather foolishly goes along with it, even though he was set up. He goes along with it, and she claims to be his de facto wife. And when he finally kicks her out, she then demands half the property. So now, even though the merits of the case were, to say the least, slim, she goes to legal aid, and feminist activists encourage her to take it to court. We'll pay your legal fees. You can take it to court. We'll help you do this. We've got to make him pay. Damn straight white male. And so a case that wouldn't occur based on legal merit then does occur because activists are funding it and saying there's no downside for you. You will have no penalty. If it doesn't work, you walk away, and what have you lost? If it does work, then you can put a ton of money in your pocket. So why not do it? It's like a very like a roulette wheel. It's like a lottery ticket, and so they go along with it because there's simply no downside for them. And we're seeing this increasingly in all manner of law. There's no downside for the falsity. There's no downside for the activists. No judge is saying, did you encourage this woman to do this? Did you say that you'd pay it? Did you do this? Well, you're going to go to prison for doing that, or you're going to lose your job, or you're going to be fined. So this army of activists is encouraging this behaviour and funding and using taxpayers' money to do it. They suffer no penalty, and there's typically no downside. So if someone falsely claims that they were attacked by racists on the way to getting a sandwich at 2 o'clock in the morning, or going to a Subway or something like that, then if they in the end won't suffer any real penalty. And the same activists that encouraged them to take and assaulted her and that sort of thing. I think she was a stripper from memory, and the Attorney General deliberately hid evidence and engaged in various other chicanery, leaning on other people in the process. But the thing was that as weak and as hopeless as the case that this black woman brought, jump into action to fund it, to encourage her to go through with it, to even tell lies on her behalf, to do anything to get some sort of conviction against straight white men. And that was the whole machinery was there to do that. Instead, the machinery should have focused on, is there a legal case here, just based on the facts? But no, they fell straight into the ideological game and went with it. And we're seeing this now across every area of gender and race relations, that it's being generously, lavishly funded by the state and encouraged. And these people who are doing all this encouraging, funding, telling lies, inventing evidence, corrupting evidence, falsifying witness, and it's a huge industry. They're not suffering any accountability, and they should. You've been with Tassus today. That's my view, and thank you for listening.